history records the day as Thursday, November 7, 1861. The Cup first took residence on a Tuesday in 1875. 2 years later, a public holiday was declared to allow Melbourne time to pause and celebrate. The great challenge of the Cup, beat the handicapper. None managed this better than Bart Cummings. With Bart, you didn't need to know racing. His record 12 Melbourne Cups will never be broken. Bobby Lewis and Harry White share riding honours at 4, etched into Cup lore. Glen Bosson's trio on awe-inspiring mare Makybe Diva.
But a champion becomes a legend!
And Damien Oliver's treble, punctuated to honour a fallen brother.
But Damien Oliver riding with the spirit of Jason, but it's media puzzle clear and media puzzle. Damien and Dermot have done it.
Historians chronicle the Melbourne Cup as winners inspire. Farlap, revered as a legend. Rising Fast, Australia's greatest staying handicapper.
But Rising Fast is going to win the Melbourne Cup.
Gala Supreme, they hit the line. Photo. Gala Supreme by a nose.
Frank Ray's in the ride of his life. Dermot Weld, who internationalised the Cup with Vintage Crop.
Vintage Crop has got him. Vintage Crop. The Irish horse will win the Melbourne Cup.
Or Sheila Laxon, the first female trainer to win the Cup.
The Caulfield Cup winners grab the lead, and Imperial does the double.
Trained by Sheila Laxon, has taken out the Caulfield and Melbourne Cup double.
Michelle Payne's tectonic moment.
10 Danson's history at Flemington, Michelle Payne.
Michelle Payne has created history in Flemington, the first lady to win the Melbourne Cup.
From Archer to Gold Trip, the principle remains the same. Be the best 3,200 metre horse under handicap conditions on the grandest stage in November.
What a win in a cup we'll never forget. American is coming away. American Trevian. Doodle and Red Cadeau, they hit the line, a photo finish. And it's very elegant. 10 Group 1s. And now the greatest of them all, the Melbourne Cup. Gold Trip wins it in a real staying contest for the ages.
There have been some amazing stories come out of the Melbourne Cup, and tomorrow afternoon another one will be written in the history books. A very warm welcome to the 2023 Melbourne Cup preview show, where we're going to be giving you a comprehensive guide to all things related to the Melbourne Cup. Every runner and rider and trainer will be going through on the show this evening. I'm going to be doing that with some of the best in the business. Brendan Popwell, Jane Ivel, Aiden Rodley is all with us, and BP, as we get to you, a real international flavour when it comes to the Cup this year.
It has been, and it has been for a number of years, and it's a complex puzzle each and every year, isn't it, to try and work out the winner of the race. We've got 4 Australasian bred horses in the race, 2 from Australia, 2 from New Zealand. Of course, we've got that Japanese flavour, and then 19 horses out of the UK. So it just makes it interesting in terms of trying to work out those horses, those new horses that we haven't seen. But of course, VOBAN is a horse that is, you know, has been touted for quite some time, for a number of months, in fact, to be winning this race. And we see the horse as the favourite, but has just eased a touch in the market this afternoon. So it'll be interesting to see how he goes and how a Caulfield Cup winner, or maybe even last year's winner in Gold Trip, goes in this year's edition.
Yeah, can't wait to go through all of the runners. Well, let's introduce in Aiden Rodley and Jane Ivel. Great to have them with us on our coverage. Aiden, you've been across the Tasman for a number of weeks now. Can't wait to hear what you think of all these contenders in this year's Cup.
Yeah, really looking forward to the Cup tomorrow. You might be able to hear there's a hive of activity on Cup Eve. We've heard the rehearsals for all the performances, Delta Goodrum and John Too Good. It's been a real lot of noise happening here. Jane, we bring you in. I know this is one of your favourite weeks of the year as well. And we are set for a big Cup day at Flemington, aren't we?
Yeah, we certainly are. This is the time of year where Melbourne really comes alive, and where racing takes centre stage. And as you've already mentioned, it's a hive of activity, not only here on the racecourse, but in the city as well. So there's a lot going on, and it's a real pinnacle, I guess, for those involved in the industry. We work really hard all year round for a week like this, and in particular Melbourne Cup Day, because it is just a race that really captures everybody, not just those that are already, involved in racing and love racing, but it goes further afield than that, and people are picking up form guides this week that wouldn't normally be looking at them.
Absolutely. And Jane, of course, you're back to New Zealand. You did the Horse of the Year awards, but just tell us this week for racing.com, of course, the X-Track side, but these days racing.com, what's your role in the coverage over here?
Well, look, I'm predominantly this week focused on the mounting yard. So this is a time of year where we actually really get to focus on key roles because we have such a big team covering racing that we sort of put our experts in their places, and we don't tend to do too much else. So for me, it's a real focus of this week. I'm obviously was on track for racing.com doing Derby Day. I'm on track tomorrow doing Melbourne Cup Day, but then I actually get to have a little bit of peace for the rest of the week while everybody else is busy going into Champions Day, Stakes Day at the end of the carnival, but I'll be back the following Saturday.
Well, let's hope that you can guide us to a winner, something in the type that you might have seen through the program, guys.
Oh, looking forward to getting back to you guys shortly. I guess now we need to look at the market, don't we? Because just to set things up before we have a look at each and every runner, as Brendan alluded to, VOBAN is your best backed at $4.60 and $7, marginally on the drift for a very informed jockey in Ryan Moore. Outside of it, we've got Gold Trip at $7.50, Without a Fight, the Caulfield Cup winner, and also Absurd, of course, bringing that form around VOBAN in single figures at 9s for the fixed win. Well, there's the market with regards to fixed and tote odds with the 7th race at 5 p.m. tomorrow afternoon. For the rest of the runners and riders, then you get into a number of the longer shots, and there's some nice options here to play a little bit differently into the Melbourne Cup. You want to head to the Melbourne Cup Hub. tab.co.nz. It's got lots of different ways to play into the race. You've got boosted odds, power plays, novelty bets, head-to-heads, and so much more. You already know tab.co.nz for all of that. Brendan Popwell, you know everything about the race, the speed map. Talk us through that.
Yeah, interesting speed map that we want to talk about because there's so many dynamics to horses thundering down the straight for the very first time, with these 24 of them. How important is a speed map? Look, it's important enough, I think, because when you think about these horses that are drawn out wide, first of all, I want to touch on. These are runners that are either angling for a run, trying to get in behind horses. Some you'll find will angle straight across and try and get into that rail position and be 5 or 6 deep on the rail. And then it's down to some of these horses where do they push forward to try and get a spot, or do they try and find themselves back worse than midfield. At the top of the speed map, Serpentine is drawn barrier number 1. There's a runner that does have the barrier speed to be able to lead them up here. Same with the favourite. And then these other runners here, Magical Lagoon, Future History and Right You Are and Breakup. These are intriguing runners because do they push forward, get outside leader, or do they just try and find that position of maybe in that 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th position, one off the rail? So it's an intriguing map in terms of how it unfolds. And of course, don't forget about the early crow market as well, Emily. That means it's who's the horse leading first time past the post. Serpentine, drawn barrier number 1. I think it can hold that position, and then it's just a matter of what horse is on the outside that might get its nose in front. I think last year it was a bob and go right on the line, and I think Serpentine got beaten in the early crow, even though it led throughout and then got beaten. It is $5. You've got, I think $5 is worth playing, but then it's those horses in that middle barrier draws of Future History and Magical Lagoon who sit around that $7 price. And what about Military Mission? That's a horse that is trained, of course, by the Waterhouse Bot team and potentially might be ridden forward in the race as well. So, look, there's a few dynamics to the early crow market as well, not just the overall race.
Yeah, and there looks to be some value through that early crow market as well. Always a fun one on that first lap. Well, let's get into our runners, and we start with horse number 1, and that's, of course, Gold Trip. Easy horse to introduce because, Brendan, he is last year's winner of the race, but he does have to defy the statistics, I suppose you could say, to win it back-to-back cups.
He does, because, look, no horse has lumped more than 58.5 kilograms, and you have to go back 48 years to find that horse, and that being Think Big. So those sort of stats are against him, but what is not against him is his preparation leading into this race. He has been super. His Turnbull run was unbelievable. He was very good in the Caulfield Cup, where he's finished into 3rd position, and then he's backed it up in a run in the Cox Plate, where he's worked home into 5th spot. He looks to be in the right spot to be winning a Melbourne Cup once again. And can he do it? Can he defy those odds? He goes up a kilo on his last year's win in the Melbourne Cup. The conditions were different, of course, in terms of the underfoot conditions. It will be firm track conditions there on the weekend. That's not going to be, that's on Tuesday, should I say. That's not going to be against him, but he's just in the right form, and he's got James McDonald aboard. He's a horse I find hard not to have in my top 4.
Aiden, as we get to you for your thoughts on Gold Trip, of course, you've got that Kiwi flavour as well, haven't you, through James McDonald? The Cox Plate is a great form reference, and he comes through that race.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is Mark Zara having the choice of a couple, and he's gone against Gold Trip, who he did ride to win last year's race. I actually asked James I was at a lunch where James was today, and said to him, if you had the choice of the two of those horses, which would you have gone for? And he said, geez, I really don't know. He got out to Cranbourne yesterday, did the riding around the bush track that they've got there, and said that Gold Trip had his ears pricked the whole time and was just loving it. So he's in very good order. Jane, I just want to know from you, you've watched him through this whole preparation. How's he come on?
I think he's the horse in the race that's got some real class factor, Aiden.
Yep.
There's a lot to like about the horse. He's a beautiful end tyre, and some of his best races, or easily his best 2 wins in Australia, his only 2 wins in Australia, have come at Flemington, and they've been in a Melbourne Cup and in a Turnbull. He's in super order this campaign, and it's exactly the same almost build up for him this year into the Melbourne Cup as what he had last year. The Cox Plate's been a really key lead up in most recent years going into a Melbourne Cup. We know he's going to run out the distance, and he's been prepared by probably the best trainer of stayers we've got here in Victoria, and Kieran Maher and Dave Eustace. I guess the negative with him is going to be the track conditions and the fact that Flemington looks like it's going to come up a pretty good surface tomorrow. He's a very good horse on a good track. He's an elite horse on a wet track. So that is really the only sticking point for him. But I will say that he is a horse that's always had a lot of trouble with his feet, and it's been really well documented. And I think the team have really got on top of that this year, and even they're saying it's the best they've ever had him.
I don't think that the worry is this track condition. I think it's that he's run on 2 hard tracks leading in. It's a Caulfield Cup, it's a Cox Plate on the way through, but like you say, he's in the right stable to overcome that. I think he's a key contender, and he's top 3 in the market for mine. Is he around the same spot for you?
Yeah, I'd have to agree. Even from a yard perspective, he's right up there in the kind of horse that I'd be looking for in a mounting yard. He's just a real professional, and as I said, he's got the class factor, so definitely has to sit in the top 4.
Well, Jane mentioned the credentials of his trainer in Kieran Maher, and let's find out what Kieran thinks about the condition of Gold Trip compared to last year.
Yeah, I would say he's in slightly better condition, just the way he's I suppose to put it in terms to understand, he's probably like half an inch taller, just sort of gets around a bit more, But, it's a different race. The track's probably going to be a bit firmer. Given the track, he appreciates that. He's got a kilo more. He's got a different jock. It's a different race, but I'm wrapped with him.
Yeah, as a year older stallion, is he still easy enough to deal with?
Yeah, he's a cruiser. The happier he is, the easier he is to deal with, and he's a very happy horse at the moment.
Well, that was Kieran Maher's thoughts on Gold Trip. The second horse is Alena. This is for Damien Oliver and Mike Moroney. It'll be Damien's final ride in the Melbourne Cup. And the major talking point, the breaking news story around Alena is the examination. The stone bruise has to wait till tomorrow morning. They'll be sweating on a run, Brendan.
Yeah, and those sorts of things is what you don't want to hear leading into a Melbourne Cup, and if you want everything to go your way. So that is a pretty heavy cloud and a massive concern for mine, because I was almost prepared to say that this horse could run a race off the reputation the horse came to Australia with, and also you marry up the performances that this horse has shown in the UK before arriving here. And look, if you believe in fairy tales, could this be it for Damien Oliver? We've already seen Damien Oliver, of course, win 3 Melbourne Cups. Could we see something special here with this horse? It will have to be at massive odds, but if you line up some of those performances where the horse was very good in a Tats Gold Cup and those type of races, maybe they're the type of form lines that the horse can produce here. But I don't know, just Aiden, whenever you hear anything where there's a cloud over a horse, it does concern me.
Got something breaking for you as well. I just wanted to go onto the Racing Victoria Stewards site and get the latest on Alena, but we've had a late scratching from the Melbourne Cup. Cleveland has been withdrawn as we speak, just come out in the last 2 minutes on vet's advice. So Cleveland out of the Melbourne Cup. But let's go back to Alena. He's with Mike Moroney. We know what a good trainer is. He's won a Melbourne Cup with Brew. He's been all round it with other horses. There is that little concern, and I know for you, Jane, as well, it does weigh on your mind a bit, doesn't it?
Of course it does. A horse that's certainly not trotting up lame a couple of days before a Melbourne Cup, there's got to be a query. I think the only positive in the situation is most horses have done the bulk of the important work leading into a Melbourne Cup. They'll have the horse fit, so not being able to work a horse a couple of days prior is probably not the end of the world, but it's just whether he trots up sound in the morning or not. He's an interesting horse in this race. We haven't seen the best of his European form here in Australia at this point in time, and look, he's up in the weights because of his Group 1 win in Europe, and I think that puts him at a little bit of a disadvantage from what we've seen from him from a form perspective here. He'll be peaking for tomorrow if they can get him to the race 100% sound, because he has been improving in his yard parades throughout the campaign, but certainly got a question mark on him at this point in time because we haven't seen how good he is.
He was unlucky in that Moonee Valley run. It was just a checkered run, and he's a horse who's gone around in a couple of arcs. You know, it does say a little bit about his quality. Just before we get back to the team, just your thoughts on Cleveland. I know we've got to feel sorry for Mick D, because it was his ride in the race. He had Luna Flair, who's obviously had that injury, been retired. He had a chance to ride Right You Are, who he'd ridden for 5th in the Caulfield Cup, but at that point he was committed. It's up and down. Of course, Lloyd Williams, a chance for him to win an 8th Melbourne Cup, and that's now gone. Just your reaction?
Look, I think Connection will be incredibly disappointed, because I think he was probably one of the horses at odds that you'd have a play at each way. So I really like the way that he'd been prepared for the race. He actually had I think Bart Cummings saying that you had to have 10,000 kilometres in your legs to win a Melbourne Cup. He was one of only, I think, a couple of horses in the race that had done that, and I thought his win at Moonee Valley was super. He looked incredible, and of course the Williams family have just got an incredible record in the Melbourne Cup in terms of owners.
They'll be gutted with this too. So obviously breaking news, guys, and I guess that'll shorten up the show a bit.
Yeah, great to have the finger on the pulse there, Aiden. Thank you for that info. Just back to Alan Kerr, horse number 2. Let's find out what Mike Moroney thinks about the draw.
Yeah, I want to draw a single figure, and we just made it inside, so that's great. Yeah, like a draw for him is a big help, because he just needs to get that little bit of cover and button off. First go at 2 miles. We think he'll get it, but you never know till you try. But he just looks to me that he just wants that to find that sort of backside at the right time and button off.
He didn't really find the right backsides at his last run, did he? How did you assess that?
Yeah, we were going to go forward, and strangely enough, and he got wiped out at the start, which could happen. Had to go to plan B, Ollie did, and it probably actually gave us a bit of an insight to him, because he was going to really zip home, and he only got clear for 150 metres and really started to sprint home, and then he ran to a brick wall again. He had to sit up on him, but it looked like that was probably, if they were going to go this sort of trip, probably the right way to ride him, get him to switch off and relax, the main thing.
Horse number 3 is Without a Fight, and that's the next one that we get to. A recent winner of the Caulfield Cup, ridden by Mark Zara. Mark has elected Brendan to stay with this horse, and I'm sure that gives punters at home a lot of confidence, because he is a man very much in form.
Speaks volumes, doesn't it? It really does. I know the Caulfield Cup winning form hasn't quite been there, and of course we've got to go back to Ethereal to be able to find the last horse to do the double, but gee, I was really taken by how this horse won the race. Mark Zara sticking with it. And I think the other key factor too is that this horse is going to have a firmer surface as opposed to last year. This horse needs good ground. They will get good ground for tomorrow's race. Ran, 13th in the race last year on ground that didn't suit the horse. I really do like this runner coming into tomorrow's race, Aiden, Without a Fight. What's your feeling around this horse trying to do the Caulfield Cup, Melbourne Cup double?
Yeah, just a kilogram of a re-handicap. No horse has done that double since Ethereal. Our horse, of course, Sheila Laxon back in 2001. But he's a brute. We got down and saw him at Mornington leading into the Caulfield Cup. This was some sort of win. And, of course, Jane, you've got a connection to this horse, because your man, Brad, he's racing manager for the Friedman Stable. And I think you said to him this night, you better get home. You've got jobs to do tomorrow. What happens if he wins a Melbourne Cup?
Well, he told me that I probably won't see him for a couple of days if they win a Melbourne Cup. Look, he is a lovely horse. He's a beautiful beautiful type with
Strong,
a wonderful
right?
stayer's frame. He's got that lovely shoulder on him. He's been really well prepared for the team off what has been probably slightly different build-up into a Melbourne Cup than what we traditionally see, but gee, they've done a fantastic job with him since he entered the Anthony and Sam Friedman stable. He's won 3 of 4. He was brilliant in a Caulfield Cup, albeit aided by a wonderful ride by Mark Zahra. It was a genius ride, so that certainly helped. I like the fact that he was really strong through the line over the 2,400 metres of the Caulfield Cup, because that's been the question, whether he'll stay a strong 2 miles. And I guess if you go back and look at his run last year, you would have some question marks, but I think it was a little bit against him. He was sort of caught out on a limb in running a soft track. He has won twice on a soft track, but that was much earlier in his career. And look, he's been, of his 10 wins, 8 have been on a good surface, so that's key. He's going to get that tomorrow. He may be left out on a limb a little bit from the barrier. That's probably the sticky point, but I know that the team had a much better run into the Melbourne Cup than what they did going into a Caulfield Cup, so they're really happy with where their horse is at.
I think that experience from 12 months ago stands by him. I love the fact that he just had those couple of runs up in Queensland and now he's back and in great form. And hasn't it been a great preparation? Second up winning at 2,400 metres. He's a real contender. I think he's a big, strong winning chance, guys.
Yeah, you have to think that, don't you? And don't be put off by the wide draw, because wide draws have been relatively successful over the past 20 years. Let's move on to an international in the form of the number 4, Breakup, the Japanese. Let's have a look at his profile, a last start runner in the Caulfield Cup. I guess he was underwhelming, you could have said, in the Caulfield Cup. We've seen what the Japanese can do, because on Saturday, one of their second-string horses, VOBAN Buramai, took out the Golden Eagle, and I think this horse, Brendan, is going to take very good improvement from that Caulfield Cup run, and also has the stats at the 3,200 metres to show he can be a real competitor. Yeah,
there's got to be a respect factor here. Now, you look at that Caulfield Cup run, and he did receive look, every opportunity with how that race was run, getting a very cushy trip in the race. It was, finishing about 6 lengths off them into 8th position. What I do like about this horse for tomorrow's race, he does improve second up. He does have a second up record to say that he is a runner that will go in the right trajectory. Now, he does have to because of his performance in the Caulfield Cup. But boy, if he stays the trip, he's a runner that's been placed over 3,200 metres when carrying over 3,000 metres, should I say, out of Japan. Could be the smoky, Aiden. I mean, there is a few here that we can rule a line through in terms of a top 10 prospect. I don't want to be ruling a line through this horse.
Okay, yeah, maybe he does need to improve, though. The Caulfield Cup run on paper was plain. Jane, is there enough there to think that he's going to be a horse who's going to come on, especially in condition?
Look, I think he did have a little bit of coverage when he came into the mounting yard at Caulfield for the Caulfield Cup, and I will say it was a tough run first up in terms of the speed that the Caulfield Cup was run at, so I think you can probably be a little bit forgiving. He did present himself at the right time in the race, and I just think he came to the end of his run. The other thing with the horse too is I don't think we're going to see much of a turn of foot from him. I think he's just a real dour stayer, so getting out to the 3,200 metres is going to suit him. He's going to improve. He's been a bit of a quirky horse. You were at Caulfield. Look, the MRC took all precautions with him. He literally had almost a padded box down in the tie-ups. They were really cautious about how he was going to behave around other runners. He's an end-tire, and he can get a little bit up and about, and he handled himself brilliantly. There was all this talk about how they were going to manage him on race day, and he just wandered into the mounting yard, did a couple of laps and didn't turn a hair. So it'd be interesting to see how he copes with the crowd at Flemington tomorrow. But I think he genuinely is a horse that can improve going into tomorrow's race.
It's interesting. He hasn't won past 2,500. I mean, he's a horse that I'm quite willing to take a stand against. He's not for me.
Oh, strong words from Aiden Rodley there early in the piece. Let's get to horse number 5 in VOBAN, and this is the favourite and one of the very much key horses when it comes to the Melbourne Cup. Brendan, on paper, this horse just wins. Royal Ascot, 7.5 length victory. We've got the form through Absurd, who's also in the Melbourne Cup this year. Is it as simple as that? Is Willie Mullins going to take home the Melbourne Cup with VOBAN? Ryan Moore coming off the back of a fantastic Breeders' Cup. Yeah, well, I mean, many would say he could take home the Quinella with the way the stablemate's moving in the market into single figures. But first of all, on this horse,
I mean, an amazing victory out of Royal Ascot. This horse carried 61 kilos and, of course, drops to 55 kilos and won very easily by 7.5 lengths on this occasion. And this is when we saw the move for this runner in the Melbourne Cup. They declared that this horse is coming out here and, of course, has won a further race since then. On paper, and with what we've seen here, I think if he arrives and brings this sort of form, Aiden Rodley, he is without a doubt, they're all looking out for him in terms of where he sits in this race. But, and I guess the big but as I come to you, Aiden, is that we have been drawn in before on these type of horses and they haven't performed. And I guess the question mark for him is that he doesn't have a first up record. Is that any type of concern for you leading into this race in tomorrow's race?
I'm just wondering whether they're looking for a hurdle at the 400 and the 200, you know, to come right. He's won 7 of 14 and his record in those top jumps races is outstanding. But, geez, he's done it before, Willie Mullins, hasn't he? And Max Dynamite just under. He's had others that have been really close, and they've all had jumping backgrounds as well. I'm not too sure. Were you here Tuesday morning when he scooted down the straight? I'll tell you what, Daryl Shearer, who clocks all the Flemington horses, says they just don't break 24. He ran 23.49. Absurd wasn't too far behind him. Call of the card today, all the money's coming for Absurd, and if the money's coming for Absurd, it's got to be there for VOBAN. It doesn't seem to be, but on class, he seems superior, Jane.
You can understand why there's been so much chat about VOBAN coming out to Melbourne, and Willie Mullins has been trying to win a Melbourne Cup for 2 decades, and as you said, he got close a couple of times with Max Dynamite in 2015 and in 2017, but I think the stable genuinely believe that they've got a better horse on their hands than Max Dynamite. He couldn't win an Ascot Gold Cup. I know there's been a little bit of talk around that they could take VOBAN home and they think that he's a genuine chance in an Ascot Gold Cup. So, look, that speaks a lot in itself. I remember watching the footage of this horse get off the plane when he landed in Melbourne, and I thought, wow, this is the nicest horse physically that Willie Mullins has brought out to Australia, and probably one of the nicest internationals that I've seen come out here as well. So, look, he's been really well prepared for this. Mick Price's comments on Tuesday, you mentioned that piece of work that he did. He said that he's going to be the fittest, soundest, toughest horse going into a Melbourne Cup, and I think that's exactly what you want.
They're doing 5Ks a day with him in training, whether that be sort of walking or running, and they're using the poly out there on the inside of the Werribee track, which they go the opposite direction, but he's hard fit. There's so much to like about it. He had a little bit of a sweat after that gallop, and so you know that they've just got him to come on even further.
He actually got a little bit up and about in the mounting yard when they brought him here and gave him a look around Flemington. I think it's always good when horses can come and sort of practice the race day routine. The stable have indicated that he shouldn't be like that on race day, so I guess that's a key from the yard. They expect him to be really relaxed and wander around the mounting yard, so hopefully that's taken the edge off. We do know that he had another strong piece of work out at Werribee on Saturday, but I think they have to work them like that to get them fit enough to run the 3,200 metres fresh. So he's 13 weeks into it, but if you go back and look at his record, he was 8 weeks into Ascot, and then he was 7 weeks into the Group 3 win where he beat Valiant King. I thought Valiant King was an okay run in the Caulfield Cup, so look, the form lines tie in. And he is the horse to beat, I think. The barrier draw is the question with him, though, because he can be a little bit slow out of the gates, and if he is slow out of the gates, he could get buried. He's another one that doesn't have a turn of foot. He'll run the strong 2 miles, but he's not going to run it and sprint at the end of it. So he needs to get out and get rolling, and I think tactically they wanted to be able to get rolling at the 1,000 metres. If he's buried down on the inside, he may not be able to do that. So that's the only real question with the horse.
One thing about that, we went out there on the Thursday and he was still doing hard work out there on that day as well. So, but they said here on Saturday, they said this horse, like Max Dynamite, wouldn't be able to be in the same stable as him. He's not even in the same area code as VOBAN. They're very, very happy with him, and I undoubtedly think he is the horse to beat. One thing, Willie Mullins out here today was quite a warm day in Melbourne, right? He said 22 degrees. That's boiling point in Ireland. He says hopefully it's not going to be so bad, but apparently it's even hotter tomorrow.
Well, it's meant to be really muggy. We've almost got tropical conditions at Melbourne tomorrow. I think it's like 29, 30 degrees with some thunderstorms.
Not good for this Kiwi boys, I tell you.
Scheduled a little bit later in the afternoon. So, look, it'll be interesting to see how their horses handle it.
Well, one of the best in the business is, of course, Glen Bosson. We got his insight on what he thinks of this year's Melbourne Cup.
I'm pretty sure it's going to be a solid run race. Absurd, Willie Mullins, other horse goes forward. Holly Doyle on Future History. He led and won the Bart Cummings here. So He likes to roll along, that horse. It always is a bit of a rush to the winning post for the first time. It's like a bit of a sprint race really from the get-go, but generally they settle down and they can go pretty sedate, but I'm pretty confident this year they'll have a nice gallop, so that should give everyone every chance. The big talk is VOBAN. I mean, honestly, the talk is very, very strong from Europe, saying that he is a proper Group 1 horse over there. So I spoke to his owner, Richie Rich, and he said Max Dynamite, who runs second, arguably should have won our cup one year. He said he wouldn't live in the same barn. Nowhere near as good. So that's a big statement, right? And I think I watched his gallop and everyone had the same opinion. That was gone, wow, did we just see that? He worked over a mile and sprinted up this straight like an Oakley Plate sprinter. It was very impressive. He's got arguably the best jockey in the world. Let's call it as is. He's the best jockey in the world, Ryan Moore. Willie Mullins is a much-travelled trainer. He knows how to, he's been here run second, third, fourth. It's been an itch that he's wanted to scratch. He's brought the right horse. So saying all that, you still got to go and do it. But if he does everything right, we could be just running for second. He might win this for fun.
Great insight from Glen Bosson. He sort of hits the nail on the head, doesn't he, Brendan? Because based on what we've seen, in replays, VOBAN's going to be very hard to beat.
Yes, yep. With everything he said there, if he turns up in that condition and he turns up with what we've seen out of Europe, he's the winner of the race.
He sure is. Well, of course, Glen Boss, he knows a thing or two about winning a Melbourne Cup. Let's wind back the clock and enjoy his 3 aboard Makybe Diva.
Like a falcon end, excellent, but Makybe Diva clear with 100 metres to go. Excellent runs to second. Ashan runs on, but a champion becomes a legend. Makybe Diva has won it. It is the greatest Melbourne Cup win of all time.
This is the greatest thing I think that's happened to racing in my career, and anyone here I think today is just so fortunate to see this happen. Glenn, you've done it, you've written the story, history's there, it'll never be repeated I don't think. How do you feel?
Oh, Letty, I'm struggling for words right now. What a great mare. Oh, it's just unbelievable. She just gives you so much confidence, this mare. She's just given me most incredible joy in my professional career. I just can't, I'm sorry for crying, but this is a moment I'll take to my grave.
Once, twice, 3 times a lady. I don't want you. Yes, you once, twice.
At the 400 metres, a length and a half, floating artist, here's Very Elegant. She's coming home, 300 to go. The mighty mare moves up to incentivise and races on by. Then floating artist, Spanish Mission. But Very Elegant at the 150, the darling of the turf, has raced clear, 3 lengths incentivise. And it's Very Elegant, 10 Group 1s, and now the greatest of them all, the Melbourne Cup. What a mighty mare. Very Elegant. Chris Waller, the champion Sydney trainer, of course, hailing from New Zealand, wins a Melbourne Cup.
We had a very brief conversation, albeit a very emotional one, before she came back, and I think I really wish Chris could have been here today, and he certainly deserves this one.
Well, wasn't that a Melbourne Cup with a Kiwi flavour, of course? A jockey, trainer and the horse, Very Elegant. Speaking of the trainer, Chris Waller has horse number 6 in Sulcombe in this year's Melbourne Cup. Let's have a look at the profile for Sulcombe. The big talking point around Sulcombe is the barriers. How is Sulcombe going to jump out of the barriers, Brendan? They've engaged Joe Moreira. Craig Williams rode last time. Joe Moreira now on board in the hope that he can spark Sulcombe out of the gates and into a handy position.
Well, does he have the magic touch? Maybe he does in Joe Moreira, and that's what they'll be hoping for, because bombing the start like this horse did was costly in a Caulfield Cup. Look, he actually did well enough in the race to still finish into 7th position, but this little barrier issue is going to be possibly a pretty decent problem for the horse. But that aside, his form's pretty good and does come into this race with a cushy weight of 53.5 kilograms. And I guess the key race we need to look at is when winning on the last day of this carnival 12 months ago. Of course, that being in the Queen's Cup over 2,600 metres. And after winning this race, you would have said, well, okay, maybe we've found ourselves a horse that's going to be winning the Melbourne Cup in 12 months' time. Now, there was probably talk of the same day on Melbourne Cup Day that White Marlin was going to be that horse as well. White Marlin's not here, but Succ, who won on Champions Day, was very impressive here. Aiden will bring you in here around Succ. First of all, your thoughts around him. Chris Waller brings a strong team of runners into the race. This is the strongest. How much of a chance?
Oh, he's a valid chance, but he baffles me. I've just got no real line on him. The camp was so confident leading into that Caulfield Cup. He had been just working up a treat, and I think they were just going there thinking that he would be a great chance, and then his chances were extinguished at the jump. It's that manner issues. Does he jump with them? And if he does, how competitive is he? On his best form, he's got to be a big hope.
Look, I think manners have always been a little bit of an issue for Succ. I remember when he won the Queen's Cup in his first Australian start.
He was cup favourite after that.
He was cup favourite after that, but he was an absolute lunatic in the mounting yard and went out and won in a really dominant fashion. And I just think it's great that this is a plan that Chris Waller has put together 12 months ago that is coming to fruition. Had he not missed the start in the Caulfield Cup, I think that he would have been vying for one of the top spots in the finish of the race. And as you say, Chris Waller was really confident with the horse leading into it. If you can forgive that run, yeah. I think his build-up into a Melbourne Cup has been a really good one. He's an interesting horse. I know he did a lot of his early work out at Macedon Lodge, which has also been a great training ground for a Melbourne Cup winner. He's a horse that copes really well with his racing. He does well in between. He parades nicely these days. He's grown up a little bit in the brain. He's got a bit of character about him, which I like. And look, the team have said that they're doing some work on his barrier manners. The blinkers will come off to obviously help aid him. If he jumps cleanly away with them from the barrier draw and is able to put himself in a position within striking position, I think he is a genuine contender in the race.
His last 600 of that race was 3 lengths slower than Gold Trip, but he'd had to do the early work to tack on, and they have been jumping this horse as well, so he baffles me. I've got real respect about him. He's going to be in my multiple bets, but I can't have him on top.
Well, let's find out what assistant trainer in Charlie Duckworth thinks about the barrier issues and how they're going to overcome them.
Yeah, so obviously we've got the service of Joe Moreira, who we think is a really good barrier jockey. We've taken the blinkers off as we feel he's just sort of waiting and sort of anticipating the start a fraction too much. So hopefully that can see him begin a little bit better, because he's drawn a beautiful barrier to get a lovely run. So if he can begin well tomorrow, then look, I think and I hope he's going to take a lot of beating, but yeah, like you said, a lot of it will be on the jump, because you don't want to waste the advantage of that draw.
They're an astute stable, aren't they? And you've no doubt that Succ will be prepared to perfection. Continuing with our internationals, let's check out horse number 7, Absurd. We spoke in depth about VOBAN and the form that VOBAN brings, and this horse has a very, very similar form line, and of course has that Ebor handicap beside his name, and that is a really good form reference for the internationals.
It's a great reference, isn't it? And a key one to leverage off, I think, leading into this race for the Melbourne Cup for this runner. Yes, beaten 7.5 lengths behind VOBAN in that particular race at Royal Ascot, but then was able to produce that victory before coming out to Australia. 21s into 9s, I think, is the other talking point here. This horse has been backed very strongly, and even more so this afternoon. So let's take you back to this horse's performance when taking out the Ebor, and of course it was on this occasion ridden by Frankie Dettori, and More Felons was also in this particular race. In great nick, it's a horse that has only missed a placing or has been unplaced only 3 times out of those 15 career starts. And Aiden, as we come to you, I haven't come across too many horses that decided in a fresh up campaign to try and win a hurdle race over 4,023 metres to gear up for themselves a Melbourne Cup preparation, but to do it fresh up.
Absolutely, the Willie Mullins touch, isn't it, BP? But boy, this horse, I went to the call of the card today. They were frantic on this horse, absolutely frantic. A bookmaker put him up at 11s. They were betting 9s by the end of it, and there were paddles up around the whole room, which it wasn't for any other horse. He has been the best backed runner into this race, and if you're thinking that maybe VOBAN's going to get cluttered up in the run, then maybe do you go to the second stringer from the stable?
Well, he has been a little bit in the shadows of his stablemate over the last couple of weeks in Melbourne. That is certainly a tide that's been changing over the last 24 hours. Look, there's no doubt he brings the right credentials into this race. And you mentioned the hurdle race that kicked off his campaign. I think he was something like 48 weeks into that. He'd had nearly 12 months off of the scene before he won over the 4,000 metre trip. He's an interesting horse because, look, he met VOBAN at Royal Ascot at equal weights. Obviously, probably didn't have the same run and transit that VOBAN had. He was often gone by the time Absurd got to build into the race, and then he was able to go on and win an E-ball, which has been a pretty key guide in recent times into a Melbourne Cup. He's probably the smoky, and he's the one that everyone's sort of coming for. He's got a world-class jockey on his back in Zach Purden and a barrier where he's certainly going to have some options.
Interesting to say about the shadow, because in training, they train exactly the way every time, so that VOBAN leads them out and 5 or 6 lengths further back, Absurd's there, and it's just like this is the way they train, and it seems to be working, but he doesn't really seem to be taking huge amounts of ground off, but whether that's a guide or not, but he's a contender.
Well, he definitely is, because he's going to see out the trip, and it's always key with a Melbourne Cup winner. You've got to tick that off first, don't you? You've got to be able to run 2 miles, and he's going to be able to do that tomorrow.
Well, with there being international horses, of course, Willie Mullins wouldn't have seen Absurd or VOBAN for a while. He arrived in Australia, and let's get his thoughts on how they looked.
Very pleased with both. They both quarantined very well. Watching them on video, they both working very well, and then when I saw them doing their final prep this morning, I was very, very pleased.
Yeah, what's the feedback been from David at Werribee the whole way through?
It's been too good, to be honest. Yeah, it's all positive, you know. He's been very happy how both horses have been eating, drinking, and this morning I just saw how quickly they recovered from their final bit. I was amazed, you know. So I think they're both very straight, and they're both very strong. So training on they have a lovely surface out there. The track management have been fantastic in Werribee, and I think both of our horses have appreciated a surface like it.
Yeah, I know you've got a lot of faith in their staying ability. How do they measure up into this Melbourne Cup?
I think, you know, we have a very good chance. I mean, obviously been favoured with one, and the other horse though is a good each way prospect for anyone that don't want to take the short odds about VOBAN, but you know, we can't find a negative now. So unless something happens between now and Tuesday, or coming out the gate, you know, we've got a fantastic draw with both horses. Very, very pleased. You know, everything is positive.
I'd say that's one very happy Irishman by the sounds of that. And there's another positive with Absurd, isn't there, with regards to the track?
Yes, absolutely. We'll need that firm track condition. That's what the horse gets on Saturday's race. I think that's a real key pointer, because one of the times that the horse has been unplaced in his career was in fact on a wet track. So he gets the firm conditions. We see the market movement. We see the confidence and hear the confidence from Willie Mullins. I think we need to have him in the numbers.
Well, horse number 8 is Right You Are, and we can look at the profile for this one. I think this is probably overs when it comes to the price, because I think it deserves a little bit more credit than it's getting with that Caulfield Cup run. He was on speed and he stuck on really gamely.
He did, because in that frantic pace, the other 5 that were up there, this was the only one that was left hanging tough. And that's what you want to be able to see. You want to be able to see a horse run 3,200 metres. Well, this horse is shown in that Caulfield Cup run with how frantic they went, was able to stick it out and finish into 5th position, and was beaten, what, a margin of 4 lengths on that occasion. A listed Mornington Cup winner, enjoys Flemington. So there's a few ticks in the right boxes, and it's one of a couple of Australian breeds in the race. I guess that question mark's going to be, and Aiden, as we bring you in here, just getting beyond that 2,400 metres. But it was a gutsy run with how that Caulfield Cup race panned out.
Yeah, absolutely it was. And he's a winner. Like, he's won 10 of 26, so he's got a good record. He's a Mornington Cup winner only a couple of starts back as well. I'm interested to get your assessment of him, Jane, here. What do you think?
Look, he's come a long way, this horse. He had a breakout season last season, which obviously culminated in that Mornington Cup win. What I like about him is that he has become a really genuine, tough competitor, and you mentioned his winning strike rate. So he doesn't often finish out of the first three, and he gives it his all when he goes out onto the track. He's a beautiful parader, he's lovely and relaxed, he's a really easy horse to like. And look, there are some questions on whether he'll see out the 2 miles, but look, interesting fact with the horse, both his mother and his father run in a Melbourne Cup. So You Think was third behind Amira Kane, and Like a Ding, I think, finished 13th in the year that she ran in a Melbourne Cup. So he's not without the pedigree behind him to be able to see out the 2 miles. And look, I do have a little bit of a soft spot for the horse because I've loved his progression. He didn't always do things right. He's matured. He's become a real racehorse, and I don't think he'll let connections down. Do I think he's going to finish in the first 3? Probably not, but I think he can easily finish in the first half of the field because he'll try.
He's in the right stable, isn't he? But for mine, he's still got to take another step up from what he did in the Caulfield Cup.
Well, John Allen is going to be doing the riding aboard Right You Are, and he has drawn in the double figures. Let's find out what John thinks about that.
Yeah, look, I was probably hoping for a little softer draw, but look, it is what it is now. We're just going to have to make the most of it.
What did you make of his run the Caulfield Cup?
Yeah, very good. He was on speed, and you know he still toughed it out well. So good, solid run, and hoping he can run well again Tuesday.
What about this 53? I understand you've only been down there about twice in the last 4 years. How difficult is that?
Yeah, look, I've done it in the Caulfield Cup, so my weight's quite good at the moment. It's going to be a bit of work, but I'm confident I'll get there.
There's a number of horses in the Melbourne Cup this year that have already had an experience in the race, and Brendan Popplewell, the winner from last year's in it, and there's one horse in Vow and Declare who's had a number of attempts, including a victory.
That's right, back in 2019 for Vow and Declare, so 4th shot at it, and certainly comes in with the right sort of form lines. Ashan's the interesting horse too that we'll get to very shortly, because this horse ran 10th in 2020, and that was 3 years ago, and he's only had a following 3 runs since because it was injured following that run. Dajon Sweet Jr. finished into 6th position, Serpentine as well, in Interpretation, who didn't finish the race out. So those are the horses that are returning to the Melbourne Cup. But yeah, I guess that one right at the top of the book that we spoke about, Emily, and being Gold Trip, looking to try and go back to back.
Yeah, wouldn't he go into the history books if he could do that? You saw Vow and Declare there as well, a previous winner of the race. He's having his 4th attempt in the race this time around. He's an 8-year-old, and he was caught wide in the Moonee Valley Cup and still finished 2nd. It's his 4th run, as we mentioned. The only 8-year-olds, Brendan, that have claimed the Cup, only 3 of them have been able to do it. Twilight Payment in 2020 is the sole winner in the past 85 years, so that does go against him a little bit.
Yes, and I guess those sort of stats are against him. But one thing I will say, and I'm really keen to hear what Jane's got to say about how he comes into this race for tomorrow's race, is he looks to be in the right sort of form and the best sort of form to have another shot at a Melbourne Cup. His runs have been super. Caulfield Stakes run was a placing a Group 1 level behind Alligator Blood. Of course, that horse went on to be placed in a Cox Plate and was very good in the Moonee Valley Gold Cup. So it's another one for the Australian breds, Aiden, and he does come in with the right sort of form as a past winner. Can he be a sneaky chance in the race?
Yeah, Alenka's 5th in that same Might and Power, the Caulfield Stakes. He's in really good form, Jane. He's proven at the trip it's been a tailored Danny O'Brien preparation, but does he need to step up a little bit still?
Look, he's a horse that I think everyone had a smile on their face when he was able to win the Melbourne Cup back in 2019. We know he's had issues with injury. He's a relatively lightly raced 8-year-old, but he did win his Melbourne Cup as a 4-year-old. It's really interesting. I think that his build-up into the Melbourne Cup has been terrific, and I think he's flying under the radar, but I think you probably have to make a really key point that this preparation wasn't targeted towards a Melbourne Cup. And Danny O'Brien, well, unless Danny O'Brien, I think he always had it in the back of his mind, but he was very forthright in saying that if the horse didn't come up and that he didn't show the right form and that he wasn't sort of, in the right frame of mind and couldn't be competitive, they would not run in a Melbourne Cup. And he said that right the way along. So the horse had to keep you know, making those steps through his campaign in order for them to pay up and run in a Melbourne Cup. He literally said, if I don't think he can finish in the top 6, he's not going to run in a Melbourne Cup. I love the horse personally. I think he's a big, robust, loves his work, loves his racing. He's got a little bit of an edge about him early in a campaign where he can be quite sprightly and show a little bit of energy, and then he relaxes into his work and into his racing. I genuinely think he peaks for this race, but I do question whether it's been a specific target for him this time round.
He's such a grand galloper. What he's won more than 7 million. Yeah. A lot of that's from his Melbourne Cup win, but once again, I'm prepared to just be playing against this bloke.
Well, number 10 is a scratching. That was Cleveland. Only happened in about the past 45 minutes. Horse 11 is Ashan. Brendan Popplewell touched on it earlier. Such an intriguing contender in this race, as you said, Brendan. Raced in the 2020 Melbourne Cup, then had that long break due to injury, and only 3 runs since 2020.
Yeah, that's right. And his last run has certainly captured me to say that he can be a chance. I like the Geelong Cup form. The Geelong Cup form has been a reference where we've seen horses that have either won or gone on to be placed out of the Geelong Cup and go on and run a big race in the Melbourne Cup. So, look, this is a video that you'll want to watch a number of times because of some other very good runs in the race, but we'll concentrate on Ashan first of all, who finishes into 2nd position. Now, ridden by a jockey who knows how to win a Melbourne Cup. Of course, that being in Kieran McAvoy, who's won 3 Melbourne Cups. Gee, this run gets me. Placed over 3,000 metres out of France, so we know that the distance is not going to be an issue. Yes, he's an 8-year-old, but I really do think he might be a sneaky chance of making the top 4. Aiden, I'm keen to get him in my numbers. I love that Geelong Cup reference and keen to have him in there somewhere.
Yeah, it's a really nice run in the Geelong Cup, no question. They did go across sort of in a pack. I'm just not so sure about that form. Yeah, a wonderful story. He's come back from a tendon injury, and to do that, he's again talking about the right stable, but geez, I'm not so sure.
He had 3 years off the scene.
Yeah.
It'd be a wonderful training feat if he could be successful in a Melbourne Cup. I'm not going to question the stable and their build-up. They're taking a really nice, fit horse to the races. So, yeah, it'll be a wonderful story for all involved if he's able to win, but he does have a few things against him with the barrier and obviously the fact that he probably hasn't had the same Ks under his belt as some of the others that he's in contention with this year.
Well, let's have a listen to what trainer Kira Ma thinks about Ashan's chances.
Pretty similar to Right You Are. He had a couple of years off and Ashan had 3 or close to 3 years off. He's already ran in the Melbourne Cup. Got back, ran home, super. He's running the Geelong Cup, which is a great yardstick, you know, that we've seen over the years. He's just had a really solid prep. Well, the prep's been sort of 3 years in the making. So, yeah, I think he'll run a solid race, and the 2 miles right up his alley.
Well, horse number 12 is Dashwan Sweet Jr. And if you're looking for an out-and-out stare, well, then this horse is it. Ran a very gallant 6th in last year's edition of the Melbourne Cup. That was from a long way back too, Brendan. I went hard on the top 10 market. And I'm going hard top 10 market again because he'll see out the trip and he's pretty honest. He's been really targeted at this race too.
Well, if you want to find a horse that can run 3,200 metres and has genuine form over this distance, look, he is certainly one of those horses that ticks those boxes. We know the runner here, of course, in New Zealand. He started his campaign here for Andrew Forsman and Murray Baker. Did this runner. Placed in a Sydney Cup last year. Was a Caulfield Cup winner over 3,200 metres. And Aiden, as we bring you in here, that run that we saw in the Melbourne Cup last year, yes, different conditions to what we're going to see this year, but it's a horse that can run out 3,200. Your thoughts?
Yeah, 12 months on, we know he's a proven star. He's got that Kiwi influence, like you say, by Sweet Orange, who stood at Highview for a bit, and of course Daniel Stackhouse, who's doing such a good job over here in the saddle. Again, I'm just a little bit colder on him. Your thoughts?
Oh, look, he's only a neat horse, but he's been really well prepared for his assignment, so he peaks for a Melbourne Cup, as you would expect. Most of them are going to. Look, I like his 2-mile form. He's an Adelaide Cup winner. Yeah. He's placed in the Sydney Cup. He was 6th in the race last year, and he drops 1.5 kilos in weight for this year's edition of the Melbourne Cup. So, yeah, look, I think that he'll be somewhere thereabouts, and he'll
Does
run
he
the
have
trip.
the class?
But, look, I don't think he's got the class to win a Melbourne Cup.
No, I don't think he has the class, but just consider the top 10 market. He's boosted as well, just tab.co.nz. Well, Daniel Stackhouse is going to be doing the riding aboard Dajaran Sweet Junior, and he's got barrier 12.
Yeah, I'm quite happy with that barrier. It sort of gives us a few options. We'd like to be positive and try to get in closest to the fence we can. It's a bit of a fight that first time up the straight, but it's exciting. The horse is going well. He's primed and ready and he's fit.
Just so you have a chat to Terry Henderson, what was the conversation?
Yeah, well, we're both very happy with the barrier. It is what it is. You can't do much about it, but no, very happy and very excited to be riding him on Tuesday.
One thing, you seem to have a lot of faith in this horse, and especially his staying ability.
Yeah, for sure. Terry contacted me a couple of months ago and was quite keen for me to ride him, and you know, I was lucky enough to ride him the way through and know him and do all his track work. On Thursday, I jumped him over some jumps out at Philip Stokes' farm, and look, the horse can't be any better coming into Tuesday, so yeah, I'm very excited, and he runs 2 mile, no worries.
Daniel Stackhouse's thoughts. OTI, well, they had a second with Viewed in 2008, and of course with Daikwan Sweet Junior, they're hoping to go one better.
Here's Profound Beauty running home. Bowers coming down the outside and Sailor Gear. Viewed is clear though. 200 metres to go. Bauer ran to second. Sailor Gear coming home hard. Viewed in front. Bowers a big danger. Viewed by a neck. Bowers getting there. Viewed holding on. Bauer dives. Viewed a nose for Bauer, I think. It's a photo finish. Stand by for the number.
When Bart Cummings won his first Melbourne Cup, Bill Collins famously said, dead heat in the Melbourne Cup. This is so close. Bart has won 12. He has won his 12th Melbourne Cup. He's 81 next Friday. It's one of the richest stories we've ever seen in the race's history.
To go, Johannes Vermeer in front, but here comes Rekindling. Johannes Vermeer rekindling. Max Dynamite back to the inside at the 100. Johannes Vermeer, Rekindling wearing it down. Johannes Vermeer and Rekindling stride for stride. Rekindling has won the Emirates Melbourne Cup. Rekindling for Joseph O'Brien. What a training feat.
It's an amazing performance, and it's a first Melbourne Cup for Joseph O'Brien, who was an outstanding jockey, and he's going to have an amazing career, of course, son of the legendary Aiden O'Brien.
Well, 2 Melbourne Cups on the mantelpiece before you're 30. That's what Joseph O'Brien has already achieved, and he does have horse number 13 in this year's Melbourne Cup, and that, of course, is Oita Sushi. This horse, he has drifted in betting when he just put in an average run in the Caulfield Cup. But Aiden, as we get to you, he is pretty consistent with that overall record and was a winner 2 starts ago.
Yeah, you just respect that Aiden, well, the Joseph O'Brien factor, and of course the O'Brien heritage that he brings. But boy, the Caulfield Cup run just was it was too plain for me. I've got to say no. What about you? Your thoughts?
Look, if you go back to his Irish form, obviously he was placed in Irish St Leger. Look, Media Puzzle came through similar form lines, and Joseph O'Brien uses that race, both Rekindling and Twilight Payment, run in Irish St Leger before coming out and winning a Melbourne Cup. But from what I saw from him in the mounting yard at Caulfield, I don't know that he's necessarily got enough improvement to make him competitive in a Melbourne Cup.
Well, horse number 14 is Shiraz, and that's the next one that we get to here in our preview show. Shiraz, of course, for Chris Waller, Bo Mertens, and 863 days, Brendan, since that last win. He has placed in a Sydney Cup over the distance of 3,200 metres, but just feel he's maybe not quite going well enough for this.
Well, he's just forgotten how to win. It's plain and simple, isn't it, for this horse? And I mean, that's a stat that, yeah, it's pretty worrying if you want to have a win bet on the horse. Look, if you're trying to find something around the runner, it was a winner over 3,000 metres back in 2021 out of France, but Moonee Valley Cup last time was working home. Needs probably rain as well, Aiden. There's a few negatives.
Yeah, sure is. And as well as that, he was under an injury cloud only a couple of days ago. He was playing, he was lame and playing in his form, but lame as well. So there's all that around him. I can't entertain him at all.
Look, I think it's a wonderful feat for the Chris Waller stable to have four runners
absolutely.
in a Melbourne Cup, and he'll be well prepared for the run, but I just don't think his form is good enough and he's not racing good enough to be winning a Melbourne Cup tomorrow.
Well, there's a few tongue twisters when it comes to names in this Melbourne Cup, and this next horse is one of those, the 15, La Stocha. I'm going to go with that. Apologies if that's incorrect. This is a 5-year-old mare, one of a couple of females in the race, having its first start in Australia tomorrow afternoon. Hey, Connections, they know how to win this race. They came over with Protectionist, Gold Trip. They know the right type of horse to buy. And I don't mind that victory in France over the 3,100 metres.
No, look, you break down what this horse has done and the form lines are there. I guess the one real big concern for me is going to be the track condition. This horse, by the looks of it, seems to have track conditions where it needs to get the toe in the ground, and a fair bit of that toe needs to go into the ground. And look, Aiden, as I bring you in here, that's my concern. It's a horse that was winning here out of Longshop over 3,100 metres, drops to 51 kilos off the back of this victory, but I'm sure they're looking for rain as well.
Actually, I was speaking to Michael Kent Jr. about that very point. He says no. He says you go back far enough in the career, you see that the horse has performed on top of the ground as well. I've been really taken by what I've seen of her at Werribee. We've seen her a few times. We saw her when she stepped out the very first time here. It would be some sort of feat because she's done a lot of travelling, France, overseas to England to come into quarantine at Werribee, but I'm not going to put a line through. I think I've got, she's top 6, maybe even higher for mine.
I'm looking forward to seeing her in the mounting yard tomorrow because all the news out of Werribee is that there's not much to her. She's pretty
small.
neat, pretty light, small mare, and she is only a 4-year-old in Northern Hemisphere time. So I do know that she's obviously incredibly clean-winded. She ticks the box at being able to run out of trips, so they're all going to be in her favour. But I'm sort of reserving my judgment on her till I see her tomorrow.
She came into the gallop here at Flemington the same day as VOBAN and Absurd and ran really well. Craig Williams had a sit on her that day. He liked what he said. He did say the same thing. He said very small, but there's enough there. I've got real respect for her.
There's no better communicator in the business than Craig Williams. Let's find out what he thinks about his mount in the Melbourne Cup.
She's very fit, she's very healthy, she's very well, and she's a sweet little horse to ride. She's not very big, she's very, very small, but she covers the ground really well. And I guess we're just going to find out, come to race day against that opposition, how good she is. Australian Bloodstock, who bought her to come out here and to race in our great race, they're really good at getting the right horses. So on her market expectation and on their assessment of her European form, then she's up to them and she's in really good order.
Horse number 16 is Magical Lagoon, and I guess you could say there's a little bit of a Kiwi flavour with this one because Chris Waller does the training and expat Kiwi Mark Duplessis is going to be doing the riding with just the 51 kilos on the back. Brendan, this horse has improved with every run this time in. The Geelong Cup at that latest outing. Actually a winner of the 2022 Irish Oaks.
Yeah, that's right. And a horse who was able to win a Group 2 out of Royal Ascot over 2,400 metres. Of course, Geelong have purchased into this horse. They've rolled the dice and had a go here. The Geelong Cup run was okay. So if we're making a reference with some other horses out of the Geelong Cup, I guess then you have to make and sort of entertain her potentially as one of those horses. Where do you sit with this runner, Aiden?
Classic winner, like you say, by Galileo, but the form's not there for mine. Your thoughts, Jane?
Look, she's a nice mare physically. I think she'll cope on Melbourne Cup Day and parade nicely in the yard. I thought there was a little bit of merit to her Geelong Cup run. I don't think there'll be any intention to lead on her. The team are putting a crossover on her for tomorrow. And look, she'll be somewhere thereabouts, but she won't be leading. Look, she held on okay in a Geelong Cup, but again, I think there are other horses in the race that come into it with better credentials than she does.
Well, horse number 17 is one for the girls. Gay Waterhouse combining with Rachel King with Military Mission, horse 17. And again, with the lightweight of the 51 kilos, Rachel King, she's in cracking form. She's just coming off the back of a Coolmore stud victory. And I like this horse. He's got miles in the legs. He's been flying under the radar, the Newcastle Cup, fourth in a Metrop, the Herbert Power. I think he's a real smoky to be able to be competitive in a race like this.
Yeah, I've actually got him, I thought if I put down fifth for this runner. I've got him up there fairly high as a sneaky rough chance. Now, of course, drops, 6 kilograms on the last effort, which was in the Herbert Power, when victorious on this occasion. And those lead-up runs throughout Sydney have been very good. Waterhouse Bot, drawn low, potentially going to be one of those horses that will be looking to maybe push forward, Aiden, with the lightweight of 51 kilos, pushed out to 3,200 metres for the very first time, but could be a sneaky for those that want to explore wider. Your thoughts?
Yeah, she won 2 of the last 3. The Herbert Power win was okay. I was kind of a little bit surprised there wasn't another run leading in, but we did speak to Gay about that. She said no concerns today. What are you making of the form?
Look, I think the stable is on fire at the moment. They're having a red hot run. I like the horse. I think he's a real dude in the mounting yard. He's pretty laid back. He'll be conserving his energy. Rachel King, as Emily said, coming off a high of winning the Coolmore on Saturday. She rides for her old master, 51 kilos. Look, I think genuinely he's a Country Cups horse. Yeah. Look, if he can improve and get an economical run from the barrier, lightweight hope perhaps.
We want some stats around greys in the Melbourne Cup. Only 6 greys have won the Cup in 162 runnings, the most recent of those being Efficient in 2007. Our next horse, the 18 Serpentine, was one that we spoke about in the early Crow market, likely to push forward in running. 2020 English Derby winner, having a second try at the Cup, and Brennan finished 20th last year.
He did, and look, they're looking for an improved performance, and I guess off the back of the Bart Cummings last time to the races, they've got the horse in a position where he's better. He's got a jockey in Jai McNeil who was able to lead all of the way in 2020 when winning this race. Aiden, we spoke about the early Crow market. I'm just worried about what might be coming from out wide, but I'm certainly going to have something on it to be the leader first time past the post.
I knew you would, BP. I absolutely knew you would. Actually, another one in the Lloyd Williams colour. So obviously, especially with the Cleveland scratching, he's got a chance. Probably needs to improve, but like they say, you know, a classic winner by Galileo. I like that about him, but I think he just still needs to be improving.
Look, a one-time Epsom Derby winner, wasn't he? Although a surprise one. But he's been reinvigorated since he's joined the Waterhouse Spot stable. They've done a tremendous job of getting him back to form. His build-up's been okay leading into this. Jai McNeil, of course, has won a Melbourne Cup in those colours when he was successful on Twilight Payment during COVID. I'm sure he'd love to win a Melbourne Cup in front of a crowd. Exactly. Look, he wears the right colours. He's going to get a pretty good trip from Barrier 1. We know he's going to push forward. It's just whether he can hold on.
Horse 19 is Virtuous Circle and did show its staying prowess through that Australian Derby. And I guess, Aiden, as we come to you, was luckless in the Bart Cummings, but then looked to have every chance in the Geelong Cup when finishing in that 8th spot. What did you make of that run?
I don't know. Do you say something nice about this one, Jane?
Look, I thought he looked immaculate in his Geelong Cup parade. I do not think the team could have had him looking any better. He's relaxed with a little bit of age in racing. If he was going to run a race, it was going to be in the Geelong Cup, and I thought he was incredibly disappointing. So I've put a line through him. The only positive I will give the horse is that I think that he can improve coming back to Flemington.
Okay, well, one thing about him, I reckon this is the Kiwi story of this Melbourne Cup, because we know James McDonald's riding in the race. He's a previous Melbourne Cup when he's got gold trip, but his mum, Di, co-bred and holds a share in Virtuous Circle. I did catch up with them both this morning, and I asked Di, I said, who are you going to be cheering for? Is it going to be your horse or James?
I'll be yelling for Gold Trip all the way, with a withering late run by Virtuous Circle run second.
It's so cool, James. I know you've ridden Melbourne Cups before. You've won this race, obviously very elegant. But how cool is it to have Mum's involvement as a breeder and owner of a rival?
Yeah, for sure. It's well, obviously we've seen it from a foal all the way up to a yearling, go through a sale, make beautiful amount of money, and now we're obviously a part of it with the greatest race of them all, being the Melbourne Cup. So it's fantastic to have obviously a runner for Mum, even though it's only a small share. still it's hard enough to get a winner these days. So to have a runner in the Melbourne Cup, something different, you know. So.
Yeah, it's interesting what you're saying, Di, because you're saying your eyes will be on James, even though you've got a horse in a Melbourne Cup.
Yeah, no, much prefer him to win it, but it'll be good for the mare though, and I'm really hoping for top 10.
Yeah. And what are you hoping for James?
1.
Okay. And James, obviously, it's a great ride to get Gold Trip. You're out on his back at Cranbourne yesterday. How's he going?
Yeah, he looks fantastic. He's in unbelievable good form. He's had the same preparation as he did when he won the Cup last year. His run in the Cox Plate was awesome, you know. I thought he was a fantastic run, especially against those quality horses, and he's a weight for age performer, which I think the winner will come from top 4 in the handicap there, and so he's in with a huge chance. He's got an economical barrier where he should get a lovely run in the race and conserve energy, and if he can show that burst that he did last year, any rain would be a great asset to him. But he's terrific. He's in great form, and it's a great pickup ride.
And of course, Craig Newitt's in the jockey's room with you. He rides Mum's horse. Did you give him any advice the other day?
Yeah, I said I don't want you 1 tick overweight. I said it's got to be 51 on the dot. And as I said, don't stuff it up. Just give him a clear run, son.
Absolutely. Best of luck, guys. It's such a cool moment, and we wish you the best in the Cup.
And if I'm inside him, don't hold me in.
Thanks so much.
Well, plenty to cheer for the McDonald's when it comes to the Melbourne Cup. We've spoken throughout these runners about Kiwi influences in the race. And Brendan, you've got a breakdown of all the Kiwi parts that we can follow. And there is one scratching, of course, in Cleveland. He comes out.
That's right. And even though we've got James McDonald aboard from Sydney, he does take the ride on a Gold Trip, does James, and looking for that opportunity here to win another Melbourne Cup. Of course, he had that moment with Very Elegant. Mike Moroney, and of course a man that's won the Melbourne Cup with Brew back in 2000 and also produced a really good effort with last year's place getter in the race as well. Alan Kerr, that runner. Chris Waller, of course, has Soulcombe, Shiraz, and Magical Lagoon, and more Felons as chances from a Kiwi perspective also. And don't forget about Daniel Stackhouse and, of course, that New Zealand bred runner there, and Ashan Sweet Jr. So, yep, there is that good Kiwi flavour to the race as well, Ems.
Well, horse number 20 is More Felons, and that's the horse that we profile next. Now, More Felons is for Chris Waller, Jamie Carr, that Kiwi, expat Kiwi trainer, and Chris Waller. And when it comes to More Felons, Aiden, we'll get to you. I guess that Geelong Cup, he showed that he settled into Australia with a fast finishing 5th. And Geelong Cup, it might not have been strong this year, but it has produced a number of horses that have been very, very competitive in Melbourne Cups over the years.
I thought his run was actually one of the picks of that race, actually. Not too bad. You go back one start in the Formula 1, run 8th to Absurd, and so he's going to have to turn the tables there. But they're telling me that the Ebor, I don't think, of the 9 Ebor winners that have run in the Melbourne Cup, none have won. No. So there's that against it. But I wasn't too... I thought the run at Geelong had merit.
Look, I thought he was the eye catcher at Geelong. His closing sectionals were really good because he got a fair way back. But you do have to be really mindful of that form tying in with Absurd and the Ebor and even VOBAN at Royal Ascot, and he didn't get close to either of those. One thing I will say about his parade at Geelong is that he looked like he still had a little bit of improvement to come. He still needed to clean up in the coat a little bit, and I thought that he would probably strip a bit fitter when he got to a Melbourne Cup. Look, Jamie Carr, lightweight, but he's going to get a long way back from the barrier. So, look...
That was the first run in 2 months, so you'd expect there to be improvement though, right?
Oh, of course, and he paraded that way, and he's going to improve, but can he improve enough to win a Melbourne Cup? I don't think so.
Well, assistant trainer in Charlie Duckworth, he gave us his thoughts, and we don't have Charlie, apologies for that. We'll move on, and Jamie Carr is the rider aboard More Felons, and Michelle Payne is the only female to have won the Melbourne Cup to date. Jamie Carr's looking to continue on that record.
Got Chuck's on with Saint Laurent. Gotta kiss myself, I'm so pretty. I'm too hot.
Coming past the 300 metres, Excess Knowledge went to the lead narrowly. Here's Prince of Penzance coming on down the outside. Prince of Penzance from Michelle Payne. Now Max Dynamite starts to charge home. Prince of Penzance from Max Dynamite. Prince of Penzance, it's history at Flemington. Michelle Payne. Prince of Penzance beat Max Dynamite. Michelle Payne has created history at Flemington. The first lady to win the Melbourne Cup.
It's taken 155 years, but we've now seen a female jockey win the Emirates Melbourne Cup. Michelle Payne, simply outstanding aboard Prince of Penzance.
I lied in bed last night and I gave my chance a little time to think and dream about it. And I thought about it, imagine if I'm talking to you after these races. Unbelievable. It's like a dream come true. This horse is awesome.
There's only a few runners left for us to go through here with the 2023 Melbourne Cup, and the next to those is number 21 in Future History. This is another for the Ciara Maher and Dave Eustace team. We've got Holly Doyle, international female jockey on board. Got into the Cup through the Bart Cummings and has been consistent since, Brendan.
He has, yep, got that golden ticket by winning that race 2 starts ago. And look, the Moonee Valley Cup form by finishing third in that race, of course in behind what would have been a race rival, and that being Cleveland. There's been a little bit of support for the horse. Holly Doyle adds a real interesting factor to the race as well. Aiden, where do you sit with him?
Well, Holly was a little bit late today. She was meant to be at the owners and trainers, the old parade that they had, but she wasn't there. So hopefully she gets her timing a little bit better for this weekend. But the horse won the Bart Cummings to get in. The most recent run had real merit. Maybe just a bit of a smoky down in the weights, Jane.
Yeah, I don't mind him. I actually love the way this horse presents in the mounting yard. He's a big horse. He stands over a lot of ground. Yeah. He carries a bit of weight, and he's got a really good attitude about him, and the way that he strides around, he's always really engaged. He just, at the moment, is a really happy, healthy horse, and that's been reflected in what we're seeing in his performances on the track. He's 1 from 1 at Flemington. Again, a lightweight chance. I don't think he's done much wrong since he's stepped out this campaign. So again, a stable that really well represented in the Melbourne Cup. Ciara Maher, Dave Eustace, 5 runners, so an incredible feat for them.
He's by showcasing that in one of the stallions you would have covered back in your breeding days in New Zealand.
I wouldn't have thought that showcasing would have ended up with a Melbourne Cup runner, but he looks nothing like his father, Future History. But yeah, it's nice that we can make that connection back to New Zealand. Yeah.
Well, horse number 22 is Interpretation, and that's another for the Maher and Eustace team. Let's have a look at this one and its credentials. Brendan just took forever to get there in the Bendigo Cup, was luckless in the Bart Cummings prior to that, but I guess that screams out 3,200 metres.
Yeah, it does, and I guess if you're trying to leverage off something from a Bendigo Cup point of view, that high emotion was able to produce a placing in a Melbourne Cup. That's something we can work with here. Look, the horse failed to finish in the Melbourne Cup last year, but of course did have the important gear change following that and has been gelded since then. So is there enough in the Bendigo Cup victory, Aiden, to say that this horse can back it up and win a Melbourne Cup?
For me, no. I thought this was definitely B-grade form. He's really got to step up. The manner of the win was actually very good, under Michael D, of course, and another one by Galileo, but I just don't know if this is the right form, Jane.
Yeah, I question it, although the stable, as BP said last year, they were able to go from a Bendigo Cup to a placing in the Melbourne Cup. So the stable do know how to use the race to get to a Melbourne Cup. I just think that there could be a really nice story around this if the horse does happen to win. Theo Nugent, of course, he's riding for Ciara Maher and Dave Eustace. He was apprenticed to them. He had a horror fall at Moonee Valley earlier in the year, and obviously had some neck injuries. He spent 6 months on the sideline. He's just starting to recapture a little bit of form, Theo, and I would just love for him to win a Melbourne Cup. I think it'd be a wonderful story. I think the horse probably lacks a little bit of class, but I do think he'll see out the 2 miles.
Let's have a find out what Ciara Maher thinks about his charge in Interpretation.
He's run over that trip before. He's a gelding as opposed to last year now. I think he's a more genuine horse. And high emotion ran third in the Cup last year, come through the Bendigo Cup, and I think his shape's pretty similar.
Horse number 23 is Carla Poor, and this is one that's fresh in our minds because we only saw him racing on Saturday. He's represented with the Libertania colours on board, and it was a good ride, wasn't it, by Damien Oliver to lead and be able to sneak away with that victory on Saturday in the Archer Stakes.
Yes, it was, and look, a ride where he was able to a glorified barrier trial, I guess, and with how the horse was able to win here and qualify for the race. And we've seen this with what's happened over the years, and horses like Brew and Shocking have been able to propel out of this race and go on and win the Melbourne Cup. The horse has been in very good form leading up to this point. Aiden, how many more lengths does he need to improve off the back of this to win the Melbourne Cup?
I'm not so sure too many. The run had a lot of merit. Like you say, prior to that was placing in a Metropolitan and ATC St Ledger. The win was good. Great to see Liv Petagna's colours there. I don't think Liv's coming across. I think he's staying home in Wellington to watch this one.
Does that say something about the horse's chances?
I'm not so sure. I think that decision was made before Saturday, but like, good win. Just tell us about him physically, Jan.
Look, he's a really good-looking horse. He took the eye in the mounting yard on Saturday when he was able to win. He's a beautiful big horse. He's got a great stride on him. He's got a great attitude. So you've certainly got to elevate him off of his price and the way that he'll turn up in the mounting yard. I think he was aided by a pretty brilliant Damien Oliver ride to win the Lexus, or I think now called the Archer. So he's not going to get things to his favour tomorrow like he did on Saturday.
I'm not going to pin him. He's just below, he's bubbling below the surface for mine.
Well, the final horse that we highlight in the field for 2023 is True Marvel, horse number 24, and he's one of the veterans in the field, the 8-year-old, and he doesn't win very often, Brendan, but staying is his forte, and he does bring that placing and very long odds in the Sydney Cup.
He does, and of course it was up to his knees when he was placed in that Sydney Cup over 3,200 metres, so he very much stays all day, does True Marvel. Look, he even brings in form into the race where, a little bit like the Europeans, he's won a maiden hurdle race, this horse, out of Hamilton in Victoria, of course, over 3,200 metres also. He hasn't got the greatest form line in terms of what you look on paper, though, Aiden, despite there being some 3,200 metre form there next to his name.
Here's a horse I don't mind. I don't mind this bloke. And I went as far as sort of tweeting about his sectionals in that Moonee Valley Cup, which run the quickest last 16, 14, 12, 1,000, but also the quickest last 400 of that race. So while his form might look forlorn, you know, he's doing the right sort of things. And at the big price, I really don't mind him. Matthew Smith's been, you know, he's a super trainer and a terrific bloke. And he might just be the boil, though, but wouldn't it be a story?
Look, Derby Racing's on a high at the moment too, so we've already seen the colours really successful so earlier in the week. Look, he's a real traditional staying type, this horse. He's probably a little bit unassuming. He doesn't sort of put his hand up in the mounting yard, but he's straightforward and he goes about his business. And when he gets up to a distance range like this, he's pretty good at getting the job done. Hasn't featured, I think, in 3 runs at Flemington, so he doesn't have any form on the track, but he is another one that we'll see out the 2 miles.
He might not be quite as fast as Osmosis.
Yeah, definitely not as fast. Although, look, if you turn it round, I don't think Osmosis is going to run 2 miles either. So.
Well, Matthew Smith is absolutely stoked to have a runner in the race. Let's find out his thoughts on the old-timer in True Marvel.
Look, he's going as good as he can go. And like he ran second in the Sydney Cup, so 2 miles not a problem for him. Stays really well, drawn a nice gate. Ben Thompson on board, delighted to have him on board, and no weight on his back. You never know. Like he just runs out such a strong 2 miles. So look, he'll be finishing on, that's for sure.
How's he come through that last run?
Super. Yeah, his work was great this morning. Looks great. He's really going as good as he can. So I'm really happy with him.
Well, that's it. That is all of our contenders in this year's Melbourne Cup. Don't forget, there's a bit of an injury cloud over Alenquer. That's Mike Moroney and Damien Oliver, and the scratching of Cleveland. Cleveland is out. Melbourne Cup Hub, that is your go-to place for all things when it comes to betting into the Melbourne Cup. There's novelty bets, there's head-to-heads, there's power plays, so much content and information there. tab.co.nz. We've come to the really important part of the show, the part that you've been waiting for, which is where the experts give you their tips for the Cup. And first of all, let's have a little chat with Aiden. Aiden, give us your top 4 and your $100 strategy.
I found this a really difficult Melbourne Cup, but you look at all the ratings and the talk that is there for VOBAN, and he's got to be the horse to beat. So he goes on top for mine. For mine, I'm going to put a little bet on him as well. You can see my numbers here. VOBAN, Gold Trip, Without a Fight, and Absurd just bubbling below. I'd have Latochka just below, and Solcombe's my, you got to have him there because, he could just come out and win this race. So my bets in the race, I'm going to go just a little guide by giving you the $10 on VOBAN, and then I'm going to have those 6 horses in a box Quinella. Jane, I know we haven't asked you to do any selections, but if you got a little bit of a leaning, which way would you be sort of kind of guiding us?
Look, it's really tough at this stage. Obviously, you've got an idea about how you think these horses are going to front up on race day, but until they walk into the yard in front of a crowd of people, you really don't know how they're going to handle the occasion. On form, there's definitely the obvious, and that's VOBAN. Gold Trip's got an enormous amount of class. He'll run the 2 miles, but in the back of your mind, Mark Zara has chosen Without a Fight over Gold Trip this year, who he won on last year. So look, I think there's a number of key horses that have certainly got a little bit more class over the rest of the field, but it's a Melbourne Cup. 20, we don't know how many yet, maybe 22, 23 horses going around Flemington tomorrow, and anything can happen.
So is it more around, well, could Brad win this Cup and then be away for 3 days, or is he going to be home for 3 days? And is it upside in him being away or being there to help with the kids?
So are you asking him, am I pulling Without a Fight's tail, or will I be cheering him on?
That's exactly the question.
Oh, look, I think to win a Melbourne Cup is everyone's dream, and to play a small part in a stable that wins a Melbourne Cup, look, I have to be cheering him on. It wouldn't be very nice of me to say that I was pulling the horse's tail. So I think for all involved, I'd love to see the horse win.
Surely, if he wins the Melbourne Cup BP, he could shout a babysitter and Jane can go too.
Surely.
Well,
I'm all on board, so I've marked it on top. So Brad, go and have a fun night for the next couple of nights. Maybe stretch it out to Friday night as well. So I'm going to go with Without a Fight on top as my top selection in the race. The Caulfield Cup, Melbourne Cup double hasn't been done, of course, since Ethereal in 2001. VOBAN is a horse that is a must in terms of his credentials and what he has been able to produce out of Europe. Then I'm going for the 11 in Ash Run. That's going to be my roughie in the race in Gold Trip. So I'm going to have $30 to win on Without a Fight. I'm going to have $30 on the top 5 on Ash Run, which is, I think, around $4.50, somewhere around that mark. Power Plays, Without a Fight, top 4, and Vow and Declare, top 8. And another one with Without a Fight, top 4, and Military Mission, top 8. Both of them at around $5.50. And I had to have something on the early crow. Serpentine, $10, which I think is the $5 favourite to be leader first time past the post.
One of your favourite bet types, the early crow, no doubts about that. I've gone with VOBAN on top. I think he just picks himself. I love the gallop we saw at Flemington, and I love his quality of form. Outside of that, I think Breakup's going to improve nicely with the Japanese stats over the distance. I've gone Without a Fight, and then I've put in La Stocha as well as a nice chance. And I think the 17 Military Mission is one at value. Here's how I'm spending my $100, $30 to win on VOBAN, $10 each way on Breakup, $25 power play VOBAN, top 4, Absurd, top 8, and I've gone the top 10, Darshuan, Sweet, Junior. I'm hoping he'll run in the top 10 for me again. Well, that's it from us. We've done it. The Melbourne Cup preview show for 2023. Brendan, great to have your company.
Yeah, looking forward to the race. Can't wait for it as per normal. Yeah, it's going to be an unreal day, and yeah, good luck to those that are having a bet, and also for those that are having a bet for the very first time. If this is your one and only time that you do have a bet, go and enjoy the day.
Yeah, and Aiden, Jane, over there in Australia at Flemington, please don't have too much fun. Hope you have a terrible day.
Sure thing. Thanks for being part of it, Jane. Great to have you with us, and of course we'll be looking forward to your coverage on racing.com back home as well.
Yeah, look, an absolute pleasure. It's a day of the year that we all look forward to. Looking forward to racing getting underway. It's an early start for all of us tomorrow morning. 10 races, and the Melbourne Cup is the feature. It's the race we all want to win.
It's like Christmas Eve, isn't it? That's it from us. I hope you enjoyed the show, and have fun tomorrow. It's Melbourne Cup.
It's Germany's Melbourne Cup, and Safety, Yellows are clean. Kingston Rock, riding with the spirit of Jason Gidgrup, the Irish horse to win the Melbourne Cup. History of Flemington for Self-Pay. They hit the line up, they don't finish. Between Dunedin and Rekindling, nothing in it. Feud has got it by a nose. Bart has won the Melbourne Cup for the 12th time. The Ferrari of shocking to win the Melbourne Cup from crime scene. He's mowing them down out wide. And Cleary Day won the Melbourne Cup again. And then he's in the Melbourne Cup. Japan 1-2. What a champion becomes a legend. But Cody Deaver has won it. It is the greatest Melbourne Cup win of all time.